Drop that was the day of the midterm exam. I got halfway through the midterm, dropped it. Yeah.
I like,
Kristen Smith.
I like Trumbull.
I found.
Santa Claus.
Salone about Joe.
Ready?
Did
everyone hear us online?
Back.
Oh, yeah.
Good to go. All right, the virtual gavel is coming down. Gavel's coming down. We're like to call everybody to order. Happy holidays. Good to see everybody. Before we go around the room and introduce ourselves again, also I'd like to recognize our new commissioner from Albany County, Jasmine Higgins. Welcome.
Thank you.
And now you get to, we'll start with you. So let's go around the room and say our names and our county affiliation.
Hi all, very nice to meet you. Looking forward to working with you all here. I'm Jasmine Higgins. I'm from Albany County, thrilled to be here and have been appointed by the Albany County Legislature. I grew up in the city of Albany and I've dedicated myself to investing there, starting a consulting company, dealing in economic development and community and public affairs, really just trying to bridge public-private partnerships and generate additional investment in the city. So looking forward to meeting you all and working with you.
Cool.
David, Open Camp, Schenectady County. Gary Hughes.
Michael Stammel, Rensselaer County.
Bill Bruce, Albany County.
Charlie Davidson, Schenectady County.
Email on Schenectady County.
Craig Warner, Saratoga County.
Larry Schillinger, Albany County.
Mark Castiglione, CDRPC.
Joe Grasso, supervisor for the town of Charlton, representing Saratoga County.
Jason Kemper, Saratoga County.
I'm Jackie Stallone, I'm Rensselaer County.
Kristen Smith, Albany County. Amy Weinstock, CDRPC.
Okay.
And
we
Judy
have-
Bressler, Judy Bressler's here virtually.
Sorry, Judy.
That's okay. Rensselaer County.
It's good to have your virtual presence.
You got it.
Okay. Before we dig into the meat and potatoes of our agenda, we'd like to do something nice. Gary Hughes came on this board when he was only 5 years old. 20 years on the board, which is truly a remarkable feat, and it's invaluable to have individuals with that depth of institutional memory and skills and knowledge. So Gary, on behalf of the staff and on behalf of the full commission, I would like to present to you a proclamation.
Well done.
And as well, something you could hang on your wall, a plaque. So let me bring it over to you.
Then we need you somewhere in the middle.
Song in that somewhere.
I gotta get a photo for the newsletter.
To me,
He's gonna take her.
Take our picture.
Yep.
Very good.
can you make the, yeah,
Yeah,
let's get the
That's good.
proclamations good.
Yeah.
Say tease. Parker, thank you.
congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Welcome. My goal has been to keep bringing newer, fresher faces here, but somehow I just get stuck.
You know, my approach to life is you're only young once, but you can be immature forever.
There you go.
So it should all
I'll
work
take
out.
that, I'll take that to heart.
All right. Okay,
Get out of David's space here.
moving right along, our audit has been completed for calendar fiscal year, actually 2023. And Mark, do you want to do any highlights of that, or?
I'll just do an introduction. We have, we're lucky to have Heather Lewis here from our auditing firm, MMB and Co., formerly Marvin and Co. Our audit was actually, lion's share was completed in June, but I forgot to invite Heather to our October meeting to present the audit. So luckily I remembered to invite her to the December meeting for the audit presentation. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Heather. Now, Heather, do you have the ability to share your screen with our financial statements?
Yes, it looks like that is available.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Here we go. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Now we go.
Okay, perfect. So, as Mark said, these are the 2023 financial statements. So I'm just going to go through some highlights, really focusing on the audit report itself. So that starts here on page 3. So this gives you our report. So our opinion is right here at the top. It lets you know that we've audited the commission's financial statements as of December 31st, 2023. And in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's that a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion, highest level of assurance that we can provide. Basis for opinion. So we have auditing standards that we have to follow, as well as government auditing standards. So this lets you know that we have followed those. It also lets you know that we're required to be independent of the organization and to meet our ethical responsibilities, and that we believe that everything that we've gathered is sufficient to provide a basis for our audit opinion. Down here in the responsibilities of management, this lets you know that management is responsible for preparing those financial statements and making sure they are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and that they have good internal controls in place, and that they are monitoring those controls throughout the year to make sure they're functioning appropriately. It also lets you know in preparing the financial statements, management's responsible for letting us know if there's any concern related to the organization's ability to continue for a 1-year period after the statements are issued. There is no concern. If there was, this report would look a lot different. So then on to the next page, it lets you know what our responsibility is as your auditors. So our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are materially correct and that they are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance. It's not absolute assurance. So there is a risk that there could be a material in the statement that's not detected as part of the audit procedures, but it's a high level of assurance that they are materially correct. In performing our audit, we have to exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism. So we ask lots of questions throughout the audit process. We have to identify areas where we believe your statements could be materially misstated, and then design our audit procedures to address that risk. We get an understanding of your internal controls as part of our audit process to design our audit procedures, not to give an opinion on your internal controls, but to assist us with that process. We evaluate your accounting policies as well as your accounting estimates to see that they are reasonable. And then we also would conclude if we have any concerns about the ability for the organization to continue. And then finally, we're required to communicate back here to those charged with governance. So included within your financial statements is what's referred to as required supplemental information. So these are statements that the standards require to be in here. We don't give any opinion on them. We do read through them, but we're not required to give any opinion. So that's what this paragraph here is stating. And then there's also a report in accordance with government auditing standards that I'll go through. And this paragraph is just letting you know that it's important for you to look at that report as well. After this starts your management discussion and analysis, as well as financial statements. Because the data is as of 2023, I didn't think it was really necessary to go through the specific numbers at this point, and nothing really changed. There were no new standards that had an impact on the organization. So if there's no questions on this, I will flip back to the report in accordance with government auditing standards. So this is because you're required to follow governmental auditing standards. We have this additional report that we need to include in here. So it lets you know, again, as we prepare, part of our audit process is to consider your internal controls over financial reporting. Again, not to give an opinion on them, but to consider them. It lets you know what some definitions of what a deficiency is. So a deficiency would be that you don't have appropriate controls in place to detect the material in the statement in a timely manner. We conclude here at the bottom that even though that consideration is limited, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we believe to be material weaknesses. There could, of course, be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we didn't come across, but we did not detect anything. So that, again, is a clean opinion, letting you know we didn't have any findings related to internal control. And then we also have to consider your compliance with any material laws and regulations. And this lets you know that we did not have identified any material noncompliance that we're required to report to you. So again, very standard, clean language. The other item that we have for you is our report in accordance with our report for those charged with governance. This is just another letter. So the first page really just reiterates everything that we've already discussed. So we're going to skip right past that. Page 2 at the top lets you know that because we do assist with preparing your financial statements and assist with calculating your right of use asset and offsetting liability, we have to make sure there's certain safeguards in place externally at our firm and then internally at the organization. So externally, there's an independent partner that does a review of these financial statements before I issue. And then internally, you have appropriate people at the office manager level, financial officer level, and executive director who oversee the review of those financial statements before we issue. Next area relates to significant risk. So we're required by professional auditing standards to identify any potential significant risks. And these are risks that exist just because you exist as an organization. And the two risks that we have for you are management override and revenue recognition, specifically related to compliance with all those contracts, because there's certain things that you have to comply with in order to recognize that revenue. So there's nothing you need to do differently because those risks exist. We're just required to bring them to your attention. We design our audit to address those risks. And if we had any concerns, we'd have some findings in those reports that we went through. So there isn't anything there. Significant accounting policies. So like I said, no new accounting policies for you. Your significant accounting policies are disclosed in note 2. Significant estimates. So you do participate in the employees' retirement system. As part of that, the state retirement plan hires an actuary to perform some calculations and generate assumptions and things like that. So pretty significant estimate included in your financial statements. We've done our auditing procedures over that and believe that the estimate is reasonable. Financial statement disclosures. So because of that significant estimate, there's a lot of disclosures related to your participation in the employees' retirement system. There were no unusual transactions, no difficulties encountered as part of the audit. There were no material corrected or uncorrected misstatements that we felt needed to be brought to your attention. That really lets you know that you're getting good information and that the information we received as part of the audit process was good, solid information. No disagreements with management. We've requested representation letters from management, which they provided to us. No consultations with other accountants, and then nothing else that we felt needed to be brought to your attention. So this is, again, very standard language, some customization because of your estimates and potential risks. But other than that, it's a very standard language. No other letters or findings or anything like that that we have to report to you. Management was very cooperative and helpful as always, and we appreciate their time and effort to gather the information that we need as part of the audit process. So that is everything that I have for you guys. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Any questions, discussion?
I would just request, Heather, if you could just show the page that has the net cost of services in the financial statements. So when I say that the Regional Planning Commission returns $5 for every $1 counties invest in us, this number resonates with that conclusion. So we are bringing $1.3 million of actual activity, but the expense is $288,000. So that just demonstrates what we're bringing to the counties for their investment in what we do.
Good ROI.
What page is that in the report? That is in the financial statements on page 8.
So this page will have your full accrual related to GASB 68. And then this page, I don't know, Mark, if this page reflects it a little bit better for you, because this doesn't include that long-term adjustment for GASB 68.
So the 735 is the federal and state resources, right?
The 735, yes, the 1.2 million is the federal and state and other resources. The top number is the county contributions, the 215.
I was just speaking to your the chart that showed the impact, the 735,000 of grant sources. That was just the federal and state.
Right, and other revenue.
Not for this year, but going forward, perhaps we can change the title of municipality contributions to county contributions. That seemed like it would be a way to drive that point home a little more deeply.
Yeah, it's certainly something easy adjustment.
Okay. All right, well, with all that being said, we have a motion to accept the audit. I'll move. Ray,
I'll second.
Jackie, second, all in favor? Objections? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
We're gonna have a presentation on the regional broadband feasibility study. Just before we do that, just to get one other item done. Take a motion to approve the October 16th meeting minutes. Any discussion on that, corrections? If not, Bill, second from anybody out there?
Second.
Dave, go. You guys can work it out. You want to keep it out outside?
David's back in the site.
All in favor? Objections? Okay. Cross that off. Okay. Going back up to number 5, presentation. Mark, you want to do the intro?
Sure. Can folks online see the presentation?
Yes.
Great. All right, so CDRPC back in 2022 received a grant from the Department of State to begin this work. It's a federal subaward from the Northern Border Regional Commission. The total grant award is about $352,000. Initially, we did an analysis in partnership with the New York State Connect All office, the office that is nested within Empire State Development, who's in charge of distributing federal resources to provide high-speed internet service, fiber internet service to unserved or underserved locations. That initial analysis of unserved locations was conducted by Madison Harisco in our office. Subsequent to that, we hired Tectonic to do more field truthing, ground truthing, and to develop a regional broadband plan that will show us areas for logical investment in broadband build out in our region. They've also done work on behalf of Albany County in preparation of potential grant applications. And ultimately, the plan that you'll hear about today is positioning our region to be competitive, going after those federal funds, the state funds for broadband build out. So we'll hear about this process. We have coordinated closely with all the counties. Jason was the point for Saratoga County. Charlie was the point person for Schenectady County. We worked with Rensselaer County Planning. And we also worked closely with Luke Rogers in the Albany County Executive's Office on this plan to make sure it was reflecting what their needs were and ideally making them competitive. So the takeaway for this, the state announced the availability or the opening of the BEAD program on Friday. It was a weird time for press releases. Maybe they didn't want to let anybody know about it, but Friday afternoon. So we will be, circulating this plan to the counties to make sure the county stakeholders have it. So that if ISPs reach out and are interested in applying for the program, all of this work will be foundational to those applications for the ISPs in the counties. So that's the summary of what this plan is all about. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ed Martella and his team. They've been great to work with and, thank you for your diligence in this project.
Thank you for inviting us today. Appreciate it. It's been a long haul, I could say, but what we did throughout this process with the outreach, the assessments, getting out there to do the ground truthing, coming up with what we feel would be the best way to get hard connected fiber to unserved, mostly residential, but return BSL, basic serviceable locations, but they are residential for most part. We were a little bit delayed because we were kind of following Connectical. Because what happened was we did our assessment and then the challenge process came in and we have to be part of the challenges. We fed all the challenges in for the district for the 4 counties into the system. And most of them got through, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So all the challenges were correct. And then
I'll just explain. The challenge process is a process by which the government and the state said this address is served or unserved, and we said either no or yes, or agreed or didn't agree. And so that was the technical work of what
was a little bit detailed because it was individual home addresses that we had to pick up off the FCC broadband map to see whether or not they were or were not served. Most of them were claiming to not be served, but they were being served. And it was under some previous applications, grant applications. Now, some of those may have been because they weren't filled out. There's a question about that. And the service providers had the answer on that, because when we pull out a challenge, it's given to the service providers to either adjudicate that challenge, come back, or, say, no, that's not correct. Now it's in that process went through the public, county, municipal, all the reviews, and that's why the governor came out and issued the proclamation that we're ready to go. So some of that has changed. The change in report, you'll see some of the unserved areas in the report change when we issue the final draft or whatever you want us to do. We usually wait for the client to tell us whether they want it as a final report, which is foilable, or final draft report, which is not. But I think we're talking about distributing that to the ISP, so it doesn't really matter at this point. I think if it's out there, somebody's going to get it. So just something to think about. We only had a short period of time today, so the presentation is really going to be very quick. We're going to give examples of the work we did, figures, and maybe for one county, or then the next one maybe for another county. But the idea is the information's in the report for your specific counties, if you want to look it up, see what's going on. We'll get to the final table, which is the cost estimates we came up with, and we'll talk about the pluses and minuses based on what we had. We'll go to the next slide. I'm Ed Martella. Today I have with us Ed Frawley. He's our Executive Vice President. He's the technical liaison for the company. He's also here in Albany at our office. Jean Marie Frawley, who was our project manager. Robert Van Oak is Skip, so when I refer to him as Skip, you'll know who he is. He's our Senior Project Manager for broadband. Online, we have also Dominic Valeco, VCOM. He's our RF and fiber director, and Jim Shelton for VCOM. These are our subs that we work with on not only this project, but other projects all through the state and other states as well. And they'll talk about some of the fiber around, but we're going to try to keep it as condensed as possible because of the time constraints. The report is basically broken up into 7 sections. Introduction, we talk about CDRPC. We have an executive summary, which if you don't want to read the whole thing, you can go through the executive summary and get a 20,000 foot synopsis of what we found. We've identified the current broadband services. Under the current broadband services, there are a few things going on there. We'll point it out in the oncoming slides. And the proposed grant areas for the county. We as the region, and when I refer to we, I'm talking about as region, came up with grant areas we thought would best serve the various counties because of the ability to have service providers compete, to not include service providers who at the time we interviewed them decided they were not going to be part of this process, the B process, the initiative. Also, where we thought we can get the greatest bang for the buck. We can get as many unserved under those particular grant areas. And the 3 were kind of, when we say 3 grant areas per county, were we recommended by Connectal, and we've had discussions with Connectal through this process.
And can you define a grant area?
A grant area is, by Connectal's definitions, we got to use what the state is an area that will be given either funds to connect all the unserved through the various rounds of the application process that's going to happen. Either serve 100% of the unserved, or serve maybe 85%, or look for alternative technologies. No different than the applications for the previous broadband projects that you've been through, and I'm sure that all the counties have been through. But that grant area is itself one grant area. And if an ISP was going in to bid on that, they get a bid on the entire grant area. Now, they may be relieved of some of that as bids come in, or if there are no bid situations where they're so remote, they're so costly that you may not get that particular area. And we've got a suggestion on what to do with that as well. So a recommendation. So I hope I answered that. There's proposed broadband services, which we are proposing that actually show the fiber routing, not only the last mile connections, but the middle mile transport connections. And the VCOM will talk about that when we get to that slide. We have cost estimates based on how many miles of new fiber is needed, both for transport and the last mile to grab these connections. And then we have recommendations and next steps. Really, for your purposes, the most important thing is the cost estimates, because when this goes out to the service providers, who in fact are going to be applying and submitting bids for these various grant areas directly to the state, they can have a guide as to what we believe, somebody studying this, we believe is the best way to pursue. Okay, the first one is the current ISP suppliers. This one is for Albany County. They're based off of colors, a little tough to see, but if you go to the report, they're usually there. You can see in this case, I think we have a lot of Verizon and Charter, if I'm not mistaken on that. For some of the Albany County representatives that are here, we did work with all the green and the left there with Midtel, trying to get them a MIP application, give them an MIP funding for the municipal infrastructure program funding to build out Rensselaerville, and what's the other Bernard. And we did put the application in. Connect All did not approve it. And something about not a priority, but I'm sure the pricing at that point was a little bit high, so. And all through this process would be, there's going to be an eventual termination of a threshold pricing per mile per connection, which they're gonna come up with as part of the overall funding opportunity, that each state has to come up with that threshold pricing that says if anything is above it, forget it, everything below, you can move forward with it, depending on how much funds we are receiving. In the state of New York, I think 640 million at this time.
One of the main drivers on pricing is it distance?
Well, what we've done is we went through and we've already had pricing from about 7 different projects in the upstate New York region already. A DANK project that was put out, Oswego County, Saratoga County, the MIP, where this application process, Midtel Communications actually went out there. And what they did is they counted the poles. Where am I going to put new poles at? Where am I going to put new fiber in? And am I crossing a mountain ridge to get to this other location, or what I'm going to need? Maybe I need a tower here. Maybe I need to put a microwave connection in. There's a lot of things that go into this, but we've come up with an average amount of numbers. So we have a high number and a low number. And we're going to go over that too. Roughly on average, you're talking about maybe $80,000 to $85,000 per mile. And that's for your area, depending on where. Now, Albany City, if they're doing something there, it's probably less because you have less the topographical issues that you have to deal with, and not a big distance. But some of these, we're running 5 or 10, 15, 20 miles. And if there's no poles going out there now, then they're gonna have to install poles. In some cases, they gotta drill through hard rock, where they're gonna have to go in with an auger and bore out to get these poles in. They may call it, I'm sorry, Jim.
So your threshold per mile, that cost, when do you see them?
That has to get done at the final proposal. We're,
Okay.
let me go back. The BEAD process is, we're past the initial proposal.
Yes.
You got volume 1, volume 2. Right now, the governor issued, you put an application, all the applications coming. And then Connectal has to make a decision once they get all the pricing, and after going through a number of rounds of these applications and bidding as to, and do an assessment as to where it's at. So before the final proposal gets issued, I'm gonna say probably next year.
Okay.
That's when you'll find out what that threshold is.
And from that point forward, if you're above, no sense applying. If you're below, keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Now, maybe sooner, maybe later, see how quickly we're doing, but our experience with Connect All is it's usually a little bit later, not much, but and trying to keep up with them on the process has been a little bit challenging for us, but we wanted to stay behind them to make sure, or ahead of them,
Yeah.
so they had the information, but you know, when they came back with the change, even with the grant areas, they came in, they changed one of our grant areas on us when they were fine with it the first time, and I don't know why. Now, they may be having conversations with the service providers. And at some point, you may find some of the larger ones like the Verizons, Charters come in, they may bid on the whole area, you know. We're seeing that in Louisiana right now, some of the big ones. And they're saying, we're gonna connect all the unserved. Just give me this much money and we'll go with it.
So in the meantime, you're still still reviewing applications, still submitting.
Well, they haven't gotten any yet because it came out on
Yeah.
Friday, but as they come in, they're gonna review it, correct? In the meantime, you'll see the recommendations we had. This report that we're doing, we're gonna finalize, we did it into some select ISP hands, I guess, but we can make it available to all the service providers. And see if somebody may want to change, those that don't want to be involved with the beat process, man, let me try it out. And a lot of this, it's, you know, they gotta have letter of credit, they gotta have a 25%. And when you're talking about some of these remote areas that, you know, charging $50 for a connection that's costing $80,000 a mile to pick up maybe 3 or 4 homes out of the loop, that's tough. It's a business model that has to be justified internally.
Thank you.
Okay,
Excuse me, does the service providers need to have any kind of contract or approval with individual
okay, I'm gonna go in.
municipalities?
Yes, I'm gonna go into,
Okay.
there's a super benefit. And I'm gonna talk about the public-private partnerships. What we were doing for Albany County, we were just at the beginning of getting that partnership agreement started. Albany County hired an attorney to get Midtel and the county to agree to a partnership. And then we got the letter from Connect All, and then that was it. That was the end of it. So we decided, but yes, the partnerships can be important because there's certain benefits like the taxes, you know, they don't want to pay the taxes. Some of the fees can be, is that correct, Sid? I'll lose some of the fees on there, the firm 75 fees, or if you connect with the county under these partnerships, you can actually reduce the cost of this tremendous. Now, that's not reflected in our cost. We're still telling the counties you ought to be able to try to get together. Now, that may be something you may want to do as a region to have an agreement. We started with Albany. That may be something later on we did. But then we were right there. We're like, oh, we're going to get this going. This can move forward for the rest of the counties. But anyway, does that answer your question?
But individual municipalities.
And no, it's going to be on a county basis, I believe, unless maybe it's a city of Albany, you may, something large.
We own a property up in Essex County. We were on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere and someone knocked on the door and it was a salesman from Verizon said, "You want cable?" And I said, "I can't believe it. You're offering cable at this location." He said, "We have to because of the contract." And I don't know if he said the county or the municipality.
No, I don't think, for this case would be, I think they're just sticking it to the county or maybe the region,
Okay.
you know.
What was your
they're
answer?
talking with us.
What was your answer?
Yes.
If you're on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere, you gotta make a deal.
And his name was Joe E. Brown. I thought it was.
There's that $80,000 a mile.
We digress.
Go back one,
I'm trying to speed you up there.
I know, but skip turn to talk here.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a presentation of all the unserved that were reported previously in the rounds coming from the federal database. We used this data to try to pick routes that we thought would be best to ground truth, to either approve them or disapprove them, going back to the challenge process. The next slide kind of looks at some of the stuff that we did in Rensselaer County, where we went out and physically drove the roads and looked for fiber and had some discussions as to, you know, where it was, where it wasn't, and where it may have been for some reason and actually wasn't being used. And that's part of what we put into the report.
The red is no fiber, green is that there is fiber there, so.
Yeah, so we actually drove those routes, physically looking at what was on the poles, trying to determine whether it was fiber in the area or not. Rensselaer County, and specifically the southeast corner, there's fiber there, but it's not fiber to the home. It's just transport fiber. It seems like the carrier in the vicinity has purposely not built on the state highways. When they like dig into it, it physically looks like they purposely skipped over the state highways and stayed on all the county routes and stuff like that. So they didn't have to deal with the Perm 75 and all the permitting that New York State requires, all the license.
Very, very expensive, but these partnerships could be some benefit.
So at one time, will they be required to put on the state lands and state roads?
There's nothing saying that they have to, unless they bid on the grant area that specifically says, you know, I don't remember off the top of my head how the grant areas worked out, but I think there is one in that vicinity. If they were to be the winning bidder for that, then they would have to go through that. But as a cost savings measure, I mean, we're not talking to their CEO, but it was very evident that when we did this work, they truly avoided those areas. Now, there's another carrier that like I said, runs through there. There's fiber on the poles, but it's a transport fiber. So we used the previous map to try to find the routes where we could find you guys the best bang for your buck, to find those condensed areas where fiber is truly not there, and that we could suggest how to geographically cut up the counties to come up with the grant areas.
So Skip, on that previous exhibit, each yellow dot represents one unserved property, either residential or commercial?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we refer to a winning bidder, but there may be no bidder in some of these.
Correct. I mean, the whole idea of what we did with BCOM's assistance in crunching the data was to try to figure out where certain carriers best fit into the puzzle piece.
Gotcha.
While New York State wants competition really doesn't get you fiber to all the homes in the area. Truly, you need the local carrier that is there to want to bid on the grant area and just extend their existing fiber. For another carrier to come in and build over somebody, it just doesn't come up with the business plan. You end up doubling the work, and now you've got two carriers in there that are fighting over the same passes per mile, and it just reduces that.
What's the impact of services from like Starlink or HughesNet, that kind of thing? How does that impact?
Well, it's
hardware?
not considered at this point
Okay.
to be a approved technology.
Oh,
In fact,
interesting.
Starlink lost about $800 million funding because they weren't meeting the speeds from the.
Right.
Okay, so at this point, we're probably saying, we are saying it's not going to be, and Connect will say the same thing, but at some point later on, yes. Once they get enough satellites up there, they may be the only game in town. If they get
Well,
those speeds
for
up.
my area, for my house, they will be.
Yeah.
And you know, Verizon is absolutely not doing anything in that way.
Well, we don't know yet. Are you like?
I'm in
like
Rensselaer
Grizzly
County
Adams
at
up
the
in the woods
end
there,
of a mile-long road that has about 7 people beyond me, and we have failure every time there's a storm,
Yeah.
but they won't do anything.
You have Verizon out there now, you said, Fios?
Verizon buried. No, we have DSL.
Oh, okay. That may turn into Fios. Give
I
it
hope
time.
so.
Because 7 houses isn't bad, you know,
Yeah, okay,
and you're a mile off the main road, that's not bad.
okay.
So that may be for Verizon, that may be, if you looked at our numbers, $80,000 to get those connections in. And if they're getting 75% of that money, it may be worth it.
We hope so.
I got a question. When you say fiber, you're talking the through fiber optics?
Yes.
Or are you talking hardwired copper?
No, fiber optic.
Strictly fiber
Fiber
optics.
Fiber to the home.
Yep, it's fine. This is the mandate.
The future.
Well, it's the mandate. You want the money, it's gotta be
You don't have a choice.
fiber optic cable. It's gotta be all fiber optics. Now, when you get to the home, you can change over to coax, which you're allowed to do. But there's no coax above, there's no copper, it's fiber optics.
Thank you.
And I think our opinion is that it's probably to keep the cost down. But consider how many fiber optic manufacturers we have, I don't know if that's a true statement. Looks like Corning is going to be reveling in the next couple of months, so. These are the grant areas, go ahead. Sorry.
Obviously, this is the original proposal, since they come back. The Connect All office has taken Albany County, and we've gone from 2 areas, I think we're up to 4. And leading into what Ed was talking about, where they must be talking to the ISPs and doing stuff that we're unaware of. It truly looks like they took part of State Telephone's footprint down in the southeast corner of the county and made that one of the grant areas partially, and also Mid Hudson Cable, I believe, and in that vicinity, there's another grant area that kind of fits their current footprint. So obviously they're doing stuff unbeknownst to us, and that's what's driving their actual grant areas that they're publishing to the general public for comment.
So it sounds like these grant areas could be really critical at some point in the process. Who's picking the grant areas? Is it?
We picked the grant
You
areas
picked it
for all the.
based on the criteria that you went
Based
through
on what I went
before?
over, yes.
Okay.
The best bang for the buck. Now, those grant areas have been sent to Connectal. The Connectal has approved them. The first time they came back with this revision, but they know these are what we want.
Mhm.
So we've helped them out with this.
We proposed them, but Connect All is actually the one that's gonna make the final determination.
Right, so
And
for
without
grant
your
area,
firm, I'm sorry.
that's okay, like grant area 1 in Albany County, like it's big. And there are a lot of unserved addresses, but the value proposition for an ISP is that there's no residential fiber in the city of Albany. So they potentially could make a lot of money with new customers in the city of Albany. And then that mathematic would help spread to the more rural locations in the more rural areas. As a business, you know, but would make them pencil out their numbers.
So without a tectonic in other areas, the municipalities are on their own. And
No, Connectal, we saw, Connectal came in with their grant areas first.
Okay.
And they were very rough.
Sense.
Yeah, they were very rough.
Yeah, it was based on boundaries, the river here, the highway here, yeah. It wasn't, we didn't see any common sense reason why they did it that way, other than they quickly did something, because I guess they were behind. I don't know. Jean Marie's been the person trying to get answers from Connectal for quite a few times, and we've got not much. We did meet with them a couple times during the process, and they try to be helpful, but we're not getting very definitive answers at this point. So they must have a process in place, but we sent them this and told them this is what we were doing, and they said, okay, that makes sense.
No, I think that's great. Well, I guess I phrased it wrong, but let's say we get outside of this region that you're working in, because some of these services may have to come from a neighboring county. If that county or region hasn't got somebody on board like Tectonic, they're on their own right now.
They're gonna be asked to do it this way, go out, yes, correct.
Yeah, Connect All is gonna make this decision for them.
Exactly.
So, you know, we're also doing the same thing for Lake George Land Champaign.
Okay.
Yeah, we did for those 5 counties. And we were able to, because we looked at it from a regional standard, some of these grant areas cross boundaries. So it's not, one area is not for the entire county, it actually crosses into the second county. So we're able to do that and connect, oh, yeah, we like that.
Gotcha.
Because that's the way the service providers set themselves up, so.
Because some of the solutions here may be outside of our reach of this study to get into this area, correct?
Well, I think we split maybe 1 or 2, but.
Okay.
No, everything's,
For this is pretty much within your.
yeah, everything's for
Your areas.
Thank you.
There wasn't a whole lot of bleed over with Lake George, Lake Champlain. There were some opportunities coming up out of Hamilton County.
Yeah.
To get in, or, not Hamilton, Fulton Montgomery area into the southern part of Hamilton, because there's a large area on near the southern end of Hampton County that there's nothing. There's not even poles, so if you're coming down 10 or something like that from, the middle of the county down to Arietta, there's an 8 mile stretch where there's not even a power pole right now. Everything is fed from the lower county. So we've looked at those opportunities, but Capital District, it really didn't fit any of the needs for you guys.
Thank you.
Go next slide.
Talking.
We go to the next slide.
This will be the,
This is the validated fiber. This is where we know where fiber's at now. What's being fed. Hey, Jim, you want to jump on? This is probably a good time for you to speak up.
Yeah, so again, what's on this map is the unserved BSLs, and then the pink represents the validated or where we is predicted to have fiber. If you recall the earlier maps that showed where the different providers existed. So it's really a linear in pink representation of where fiber exists today. And then what our design was is basically to do fiber to the home, or the orange layer, to get to as many BSLs as is reasonable. In other words, those served by a legitimate roadway, if you will. And then the blue represents the transport side of the fiber. In other words, we wanted to make sure that this was a contiguous plan and not have any segments of orange that are kind of islands. Now, going back to the strategy, if the existing fiber provider comes in and wins the bid, then this transport may not need to be funded because a lot of it overlaps with the existing fiber. But since we can't, identify or predict who would actually win the bid, we wanted to make sure that we had accounted for this needed transport fiber.
I'll pick this up here. Thanks, Jim. One of the requirements on any of the feasibility planning had to include climate risk. And what that required us to do is to look at the current climate risk reports that are currently held by the federal government. This is a little adaptation of what was under each of the counties. You have relatively low risk, and this fiber is not going to do anything to affect that risk assessment. That's based on our opinion. So, and that's what we put out there. But we showed you the risk reports. This is the bottom line, the cost estimate. As you can see, the grant areas have been separated, and we've come up based on the information VCOM has shown as transport fiber and total fiber, what it would cost to build out a system between a 75,000, which you've already had a few in the upstate New York at 75,000, close to what we have here, or at 110,000, which we've had one that was at the upper number. That was actually the number we were working with Midtel Communications for Rensselaerville and the other town. So those are the numbers. You got the totals. Right now, to get this built out on all the unserved areas, you're probably looking at a total on the low side of 91 million or the high side of 133 million. Well, that presents a kind of a problem because we're talking about 4 counties. The entire state's getting 640 million, I believe it is. So we don't think you're going to get all this money. And we think there's going to be some of that threshold pricing that's going to kick in to move out some of these areas that is just totally remote, and eventually wait for Starlink to get. But that's, I mean, as they go through the round 1, round 2 phases, if they take away, well, we don't want 100% connected, maybe 85, maybe 60%. How about doing some wireless? Because you still have fixed wireless that Verizon provides and T-Mobile provides that are sitting there chomping at the bit waiting to go, because they want to do that. And that's a technology that's approved, but not for the first rounds. It's got to be a hard fiber round. So we'll see how this goes. Who's going to bid on it? Where at? And and how much they're bidding to get it done. But anyway, you should know that. That's the pricing. We got to see, we are very conservative pricing, but you can see we're including transport in there because we don't know who the service provider is, but if one gets in there, that may come on. So it may be less. Go back to your report. And
We gotta move on.
oh, okay. Well,
Fortunately, we've had a lot of Q and A during the
yeah, that's
presentation,
fine.
so I think that was terrific, by the way. That was a great presentation.
Appreciate it.
That's a lot to digest.
You can reach out to us, you mark in the email on there,
Mhm.
and please do.
All right,
And the recommendations, I will say, well-informed and knowledgeable, and I think we will be implementing the recommendations that I prevented Ed from talking about.
And we thank you for that one.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks for making the trip. Okay.
Have a great holiday, everybody.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, everyone.
Good trip
Happy
back.
holidays.
Yeah, I will. No snow.
It took me 4 hours to get from Erie to Buffalo the other day.
No kidding. Wow.
Creeping along.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking
A
too.
lot of prayers, let me tell you.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, let's move through the agenda here. Next up is, presentation of our financial statements through November 30th. Take it away, Mark.
Right, where revenues are at 85% to budget, expenses are at 88%, 92 is par. So we're tracking pretty well. We will true up on our revenue side once we submit the Q4 grant revenues, book those after we send the bills to the state agencies. $180,000 in the bank, $160,000 in our non-class investment account. And total receivables, of which about 200,000 is related to the broadband project you just heard about, of the $483,000 in accounts receivable. Any questions on the financials?
Questions, comments? None. Without any, I'll invite a motion to adopt the financial statement. David, seconded. Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. As my term as chair comes to a close, it's time to nominate new officers going into 2025. Our nominating committee has met and has presented a slate. Before we present that slate, pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order, I would ask if anyone has a desire to propose a nomination from the floor. And absent that, I will, let's see, present the findings of the nominating committee. And as you know, the counties rotate on an annual basis through the officer positions. So for 2025, the proposed slate of officers for the Capital District Regional Planning Commission are as follows. Chair, Jacqueline Stallone of Rensselaer County. First Vice Chair, Joseph Grasso of Saratoga County. Second Vice Chair, David Hogenkamp of Schenectady County. And Secretary Treasurer, Jasmine Higgins of Albany County. Discussion? Comments? I'll comment that this is an excellent slate of officers. Very optimistic that the stewardship of the Capital District Regional Planning Commission will be in good hands. So moving forward, I'll accept
So moved.
that. All in favor?
Aye.
And consider that done. Okay. We have a proposed meeting schedule for 2025, which is somewhere along like here it is. January 15th, April 16th, June 18th, October 15th, December 17th. Is anyone had the opportunity to see how that corresponds to their calendars, whether there's anything external that impacts that we have not taken into consideration.
The June date is not Juneteenth.
I don't see any conflicts with major holidays or anything of that nature. Check, it's all done, okay. So, again, accept a motion to approve. David, seconded by.
I'll second.
I'll second that as well.
What did I-
It was
Thank you, David.
Karen first, David.
Okay, sorry, Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The County of Albany is down a member to the Capital, what is it, the Capital District Youth Center. And our new Commissioner from Albany County, Jasmine Higgins, has expressed an interest in serving on the Youth Center Board. And so I guess it would be up to us today to consider a nomination of Jasmine Higgins to the Capital District Youth Center Board. Any discussion? Absent discussion.
The board action requested also extends or reappoints the existing commissioner appointments to the CDYCI board for 3-year terms.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. Motion to accept those nominations. Greg seconded, and all in favor? Motion carries. Done. Okay. Governor Hochul has signed the legislation to clarify the authorization of regional planning commissions throughout the state to apply for either state and or federal funding. Thank you to everybody who participated in the advocacy effort on that. And that is good to have done. Moving right along. Mark, you want to talk about this economic impact analysis for you Albany? I saw there was something in the newspaper about that.
Yeah, we got a nice little good coverage there. I'll actually turn it over to Kate Maynard to talk about the foreign trade zone.
Sorry,
We have a new designation in the foreign trade zone. I'd like to also thank our Schenectady County Commissioners for helping to facilitate the participation of General Electric and some of their other providers, including our new member, Jupiter Bach.
But did I miss an item here?
Yeah, the foreign number 12.
So we're doing 12, that's Kate.
Right.
That's why I forgot.
They're right in a row, it's okay.
Yeah, they're both gonna be Kate.
Okay, good.
So thanks, Mark. And beat me to the punch. I wanted to thank Schenectady County, especially David, for the connections for First GE Vernova and what has led into one on the agenda for you today, which is our new user, Jupiter Bach. So good news on the FTZ front, foreign trade zone, for those who are not familiar. In a very brief nutshell, I've learned to be very quick when I give my definition of foreign trade zone before eyes glaze over. It is a federal program that we administer for a 10-county area, so an expanded capital region area. And it basically, most basically provides benefits to businesses that have an import part of their economic activity. So this year we have had a lot going on. We had a workshop that we held in conjunction with the Port of Albany and CEG in the summertime. It was well attended, overall success. And that, I think, in part has led to some interest and some spin-off and direct activity related to this. So GE Vernova is full speed ahead as a user. Jupiter Bach has just come on board. We had our meeting with Customs and Border Protection last week as a site walkthrough. So they're on board. They're a supplier for GE Vernova. They provide components for the wind turbines, kind of the aspects of the outdoor housing and some other parts of it. So they're on board and new to the program as well. So all good news as a whole. Curia, which is our longtime user, has expanded twice in the recent history, I think within the past 2 years. So all in all, this is good activity. One thing to be primed for is if there is any changes in the tariff situation, we may see more interest in the FTZ program in terms of potential. What people may perceive as workaround, it doesn't actually operate as that, but we may see more interest that we can guide potential users through as well for the partners. So that's just a general update for you to keep you apprised of what's going on with FTZ. Any questions or comments on that?
I would just thank Kate and Mark. It is a valuable resource. We are actively talking to a lot of exporters about this as the tariff conversation is growing. So that's something you can just bring up in passing. You don't need to know too much, and then you connect them over to Kate, and she'll be able to send the calculators to companies, make sure they're thinking about it, helping them stay in this region and be successful. So thank you.
Yeah,
Good. And it also nets us additional revenues. The companies pay us a fee for the privilege of saving money. So it's good for us.
You want me to go to the next agenda item?
Yes, the U Albany Economic
Oh,
Impact
thanks.
Analysis.
Great.
Let me share the screen time now. So Kate did a great job putting together this economic impact analysis for U Albany. It was a $10,000 contract. We use the program InPlan. What's critical for InPlan to work is quality inputs. We had the bulk of the work was getting the quality inputs for the analysis, but I'll turn it over to Kate to talk a little bit about the process and the impact.
Thanks, Mark. So this overall is hopefully a happy update for you all. As Mark mentioned, we were asked by the President's Office of the University of Albany to complete an analysis, basically the overall economic impact of the university as a whole. So the way we look at that is really in terms of direct impacts, so direct impacts financially within the local and regional economy. The indirect, which if you think of it as backward linkages, so what might be supply chain, what might be the raw materials, everything going into the economic activity, and then the induced, which is think of it going forward. So those might be the employee salaries, the overall payroll, what might be the household spending. So say you're a laborer, you're working on a new dormitory for the New Albany campus. What does your spending look like, and what are those ripples into the economy from that overall activity? So we looked at it all. As Mark mentioned, it was really key to get good input. Analysis is only as good as what you put into it in terms of appropriateness and being as dead on as you can be with the overall activity. So we looked at primarily the areas of operations. So looking at that employee aspect of what might be the overall expenditures, this includes R&D. Construction, so the overall activity varies year by year, but it might be dormitories, it might be educational facilities, it might be maintenance, upgrades. It's a large institution with a lot of physical infrastructure. So that side of things. For that one, we looked at averaging the investment over 10 years to more accurately portray the activity because it varies. So we go 5 years back in time, and we go 5 years forward in terms of projections to best calculate what that activity looks like. And then finally, we have the student spending. So students who are from out of the area, what they may spend on, say, rent off campus. Again, we're not measuring the activity affiliated with the university, but the local and regional economy might be eating out in general living expenses. So that's a large line item. And then visitor spending, which was new to this report. And that's looking at a summary of non-U Albany affiliated visitors. So think of graduation, think of special seminars, workshops, sporting events. We're able to get a tally from U Albany that we can hang our hat on in terms of people who are coming into the campus and spending money within the regional economy as a whole. So this first page here is, we did revamp the report too. We've done this analysis for the university many times in the past. We saw this as an opportunity to really revamp the report and really kind of modernize the presentation of the facts and figures. So Lauren to my side here was a great help in providing some of these visualizations. The university was very happy with the report as a whole. They put it on their website, they put it out. As Larry mentioned, we have seen some press overall in terms of the reports. So you can see those tabulations for those quarters I just covered up here on the screen. So the university operations contributions is calculated as about 813 million per year. And the impact of looking at that is 6,700 jobs. Labor income and value added, also substantial numbers. The construction impact, as I mentioned, we took the average and based on that average, projected out the over 211 million per year impact in terms of just that construction activity.
Is that Nano's back with Sri-Elman?
That was a real part of the focus. You're absolutely right. So they just rejoined. So yes, this was calculated underneath that. And what we did see, I'm going to get to the R&D side of things. They do project their numbers to increase greatly because they're now back under UAlbany's umbrella, as well as new research opportunities that they're seeing. So student spending is also a high amount. So $80 million per year is projected from that. And then the visitor spend, again, which was new, is a $7.3 million estimate. That's conservative. I really wanted to make sure we had a number. UAlbany, of course, would love to see that as large as possible. But obviously, with all of this, we are kind of that third party assurance of things being something we can really kind of stand behind. It's credible. So that may be actually a bit conservative, and there's different ways that they could quantify and we can put into in-plan further things, but as a first year impact, that's notable. So all said, these four things put together really puts the impact of the university as a whole at over $1 billion, $1.1 billion per year in terms of that.
And Kate, the 8,000 jobs in this memorandum, that's those two numbers put together? 6705 and 13.
Yes, it looks like that was put together. Okay. Yes, correct.
And those would be like direct and induced jobs?
Those are all together. Yes, you're looking at direct, correct, indirect and induced. So what does that activity bring out in those different ways to measure it? That's correct. Mark, if you wouldn't mind scrolling to, I'm looking for the R&D. So I'm going to show you some parts that we, through conversation with the university, I'll just keep going. That we were able to add, here we go right here. So this table we talked a lot about, but I foresee that in the future we'll be able to dig further into it. We had looked at this in past analyses. So just looking at the growing R&D aspect of University of Albany. So these are expenditures. So this you can consider what's being brought in terms of funding. Say it's a federal grant. It might be a private operator who's looking to develop, say, their particular concept, proof of scale. So these are kind of ratings of what's going on within the region. So UAlbany, I did wonder actually going into it if RPI might beat it out in terms of R&D, but UAlbany in terms of this measurement, this federal measurement, actually comes out on top with 142 million per year.
And that didn't include nanotech?
That did include nanotech.
Okay.
Yes, but they are expecting from conversations with the president's office that number to increase greatly.
Okay.
But that does increase that. So just interesting showing of, our major R&D institutions within the region and how it ranks. So that was new. And then I already checked the nanotech part of it. And then if you, Mark, would you please go down one more page, I believe? Yes. This also is new, which is UAlbany has put a large focus on really bringing in populations of students and providing the pipeline to a quality education and the institutional wealth and the generational changes that might come with that. So we're talking typically about, say, first generation students or underrepresented students or populations, a real focus on that. So as you can see here in the yellow text box, we looked at a national study that really provided that University of Albany is rated within this economic mobility index as tier 1, so the top tier. And so they're in the top 20% of institutions that are unambiguously delivering strong economic mobility outcomes to students. So that also is a new focus and ties in with the university's approach and what they've been looking to provide within the vein of universities in modern day. So that was new as well. So all in all, UAlbany was very happy with the report. We're already talking about I don't think they wanted it to end, quite honestly. They wanted to say, okay, final edits, final edits. They're very interested in what might be spin-off efforts or looking at new items within a future report or analysis in the future as well. So all in all, I think we could say it was a good continued collaboration with the university. And I think they're very happy with the product that was provided to them as a whole. As a reminder, we provide a lot of economic impact analyses and a variety of different projects with regular partners. This obviously is at the more involved side of the spectrum in working with them, but I think it's something that uses the in-plan tool very well, which we paid for, and is an investment in the region and something we provided value to our partners. Any questions on that?
That's terrific work, Kate.
Great
work.
And,
Impressive, very impressive.
yeah, and I could see why the university was very pleased with the product. They've got a lot to leverage off.
Outcome.
Yeah,
Sure they do.
there's a lot to leverage there. And with that, let me just segue from that and say that it's that particular product is absolutely representative of the professionalism and the high quality work that staff present and the staff that's here virtually or in spirit continually provides the not just the commission, but the 4 counties and the greater region. So you all do a terrific job, and on behalf of the full board, I'd just like to acknowledge that and wish you all happy holidays, full of joy and gratitude. So thank you very much. And with that, I'd like staff to excuse themselves. We're going to talk about the budget, but nothing you need to worry about. Just want to be appropriate.
But then you can watch it on YouTube later.
Yeah. Yeah, well. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, 2025 budget for CDRPC. Budget's 5.5% more than this current year's budget. The A&F committee and the board did increase the request to the counties. And I believe all those requests have been approved by the county legislatures. So we increased it from 222,000 to 228,000. Last year, every county dollar leveraged for $0.75 in resources we bring into the region.
No feedback on those increased requests.
No feedback.
Okay, good.
No news is good news.
Absolutely.
Was that the first increase in many years? I'm trying to remember.
No, we made the first increase several years ago, and then the board has continued requesting increases to roughly keep pace with the rate of inflation.
And what I would also say is we've also made a somewhat of a concerted effort to meet one-on-one, but small group with the leadership of the counties to explain in detail what we provide. It's been, I think, paying dividends, and we have something coming up with Schenectady, right, David?
January 6th.
January 6th, and I think the only county we have yet to sit down with is Rensselaer County,
Correct.
so we need to do that.
Mhm.
So I think that's a reflection of the goodwill.
Piece of cake.
You know,
I was a couple of years ago to get it started, the new increases. Now we got the ball rolling.
Well, that broadband studies, I think, is in and of itself. Speak for it.
I agree. I agree.
Anyway, pardon the interruption.
Sure, not contractual services, these include economic impact analyses and our 9 school enrollment projections. CDRPC workshops, I increased that budget line to more accurately reflect the revenues and expenses for the workshops. We were successful in ticket sales and sponsorships this year. I think we made the revenue side about 14,000. FTZ, it reflects the additional revenues for the 2 new users of the foreign trade zone. NYSERDA, we are under contract through 2026. So we will, and we essentially are being engaged by NYSERDA over the next year to help them develop a new program, which they will release in 25. And so that will carry us through hopefully another 5-year term of the Clean Energy Communities Program. Climate Smart programs in a similar situation. We were given the notice of award letter. We are still awaiting a contract, and the contract will be on this agenda for your approval and acceptance when we have it available. The CSO Corporation is kind of winding down its operation. The major construction project, the Beaver Clean River project, has been completed, and there's just a couple more projects to get over the hump. So that reflects the declining budget line. However, when you sort of wrap up these very complicated intermunicipal and finance projects, there's a lot of accounting that has to go into that, and a lot of reconciliations and bills and vendor payments. So Tom's hours on the job are likely to increase as the program gets closer to the end for that work. EDA contract remains the same. Water quality budgeting 87,000 to reflect a grant award, and that's a 5-year engagement. UPWP, generally reflecting the status quo here, but also understanding now that we have Lauren Ortel working half-time on the program paid under the UPWP, that the budget will be roughly around 180. And we anticipate that the remainder of the broadband money for tectonics work, about 100,000, will be spent in calendar year 25. Perhaps assisting counties and or ISPs in developing applications for the BEAD program. Remains to be seen how much technical assistance they're going to need for that. On the expense side, salary reflects a full-time staff of 9, 1 part-time professional, that's our financial officer, Tom, and 1 intern. Office equipment, just standard computer stuff. I have included equipment for budget for the purchase of 4 additional laptops. Because some of our laptops will not be able to be updated with the latest version of Windows or something in October, so we need to replace them. Workshops, again, more in line with the actual expenditures. Consultant services line, that includes the work for the broadband, our contract with UAlbany for the indicators website, legal counsel, a demographer that we're going to hire to help us to do employment projections for the folks down the hall, their transportation projections for the region. Computer supplies and software. This is, our in-plan that we use to do that economic impact analysis, our GIS programs, our data visualization programs like Tableau, Adobe, MailChimp, Canva, email, Microsoft Office, all that general stuff. The rent line is slightly decreased due to our renegotiation of our lease. And you might notice was a new office constructed down the hall there that they threw in because they like us being here. Travel expenses increased slightly because the team, the outreach coordinators, are getting out there more, which is exactly what we want them to do. And the increase will, is reflected in the 25 budget. Telephone and internet, same status quo as last year. Anticipate no changes in workers' comp or disability insurance. Unemployment insurance, after the pandemic, that line increased and now it's sort of plateaued, so it's relatively stable. Health insurance are based on the actual rates for NISHIP. The increase reflects, is driven by 1 employee converting from getting a payout because she was on her parents' insurance to now being too old to be on her parents' insurance and having to get her own insurance. That's where we were. So the proposed budget is balanced. The unreserved fund balance at the end of 23 was $730,000. On the salary side, I've included what our salary ranges are for the different job positions. Every year I go through a process, and you'll see this table from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that tracks the rate of inflation to remain competitive with other employers, namely our public employers, the state agencies. We adjust our salary ranges to keep pace with the rate of inflation. I take the average of the first 2 quarters of the current year and find out for the salary ranges to bump those up. I also, at the request of the A&F committee, did an analysis of urban and regional planners' wages in our particular area of the state. And that analysis is also included in your board packet. So median wage, about just over 80,000 for professional urban planners in this area. And you can see a subsequent breakdown and comparison of the different regional economic development council regions in the state in the last attachment of entry wage, median wage, and mean wage. And the ANF committee took a hard look at my proposed salaries for the staff, and it made those recommendations. I noticed that we have a staff member still in here.
We're taking minutes.
That's okay. You can do it from the recording. Thanks, Amy, though.
But so is this publicly available only because if we get into discussions on salaries or personnel, is there a way to stop the recording?
Yes.
You'll be able to do that?
Yeah, we'll go into executive session. I'll ask for
Okay.
a motion to go into executive session
Oh, this is.
to discuss personnel.
And Judy, when we go into executive session, and who's ever on the phone, I'm gonna put you in a breakout room.
That's
So you'll
fine.
be able to join.
That's fine.
So as Mark said, we did have a very lengthy, and, productive ANF committee meeting. Going through the proposed budget, proposed salaries. So with that, I open it up to the board. Anybody has comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm circulating now the proposed salary adjustments proposed in the budget.
So I'll start off with a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel. I would ask that Mark can stay available.
So we have a motion to go to executive session. Greg, second that, all in favor?
Aye.
Objections, none. We will now enter executive session
Yeah,
to
just-
discuss personnel.
Yeah, just let me figure out how to do this, because they've changed it.
Your Beggars.
What? Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
Good?
yes.
Okay, the Capital District Regional Planning Commission has come out of executive session, just discussing personnel matters. The next item on our agenda is the 2025 proposed budget. We have a motion in front of us to adopt the proposed budget. Gary, seconded by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Motion carries. Proposed budget is adopted. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Gary,
Second.
everybody, and happy holidays.
I'd just like to say, Larry, thank you for your leadership this past year. You did a good
It's been
job.
great. Thanks, Brian.
Good job.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure working with everybody.
Yeah.
We don't like grass.
And we don't.
No.